Toronto.
Toronto right now is a city bursting at the seams.
67, 31, 59 proposed towers.
We've seen a boom of sorts.
Toronto is on track to pass Chicago to become the city with the second most skyscrapers in North America. If I told you this 2 decades ago, you probably wouldn't have believed me. This is Toronto in 1998, and to fast forward to June 2020, this is what it looks like now. Toronto is currently in the middle of a high-rise construction boom. A lot of these towers are condo buildings in the city's core, in part to reduce stress on transit, but mostly because younger generations are more willing to live in a downtown condo. One of these condo towers is the INDX Tower in the financial district, just south of City Hall. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the channel all about architecture, engineering, and city planning conveyed through Minecraft. Over the course of this video, I'm going to be walking you through how I remade Toronto's INDX Tower.
Hello everyone, my name is Gamefruit Pulp, creator of the Minecraft Building Toronto project, a multi-year building team project that is aimed to recreate the city of Toronto, Canada on a 1-to-1 scale. The project, which began in April of 2017, features about a half dozen builders that aim to capture every detail of the wonderful city of Toronto. Over the past almost 4 years, we've completed almost 24 city blocks, including interiors, exteriors, and even some underground infrastructure. I can't wait for you guys to have a look at all the great work that we have done.
Every great Minecraft build starts with research. My first step was to find the height of the tower, number of floors, and floor plans. The tower is roughly 179 meters tall with 54 floors. Usually when I'm building skyscrapers, I have the base of the tower with a 5 to 6 block tall floor, plus 2 blocks in between floors, but since I'm building at a 1-to-1 scale this time, I had to throw that idea right out the window. The base of the tower has 4 floors, and there's this bit of a transition section between floors 5 to 9 before the balconies start on the north side. Once the balconies start on the north, there are 3 floors before the lowest rectangular indent. On the north side, there are 4 indents in total, each one being 7 floors tall, with a break of 3 floors in between each one. In this screenshot from Google Maps, you can see that the photo is warped on the upper half of the 3rd rectangle. Obviously, this building doesn't look like that, so I had to interpolate and assume that the architect that designed it doesn't have Timbits for brains. If we look at the top part, we can see there's 4 floors with balconies, and since we know that the building is 54 floors, we know that the top floor is pushed back and that we can't see it from this angle. Luckily for me, I visited Toronto right before COVID and went up the KPMG tower right beside it and took this picture. For the actual floor heights, after quite a few calculations, I decided on 4.5 blocks for the lobby, 1.5 for the floor and the ceiling above, 4 for the other 3 floors of the base, plus 1 block in between each floor. For the actual condos on the middle and upper floors, I chose 2.5 plus half-block ceilings. Obviously, you can't stick lighting in half-block ceilings and make it still look integrated, so I had to get a bit creative and add lights above the exterior windows. The 2 variable parts of the build to get it exactly to 179 meters was the very top section and the transition between the base and the rest of the tower. I ended up making the base to tower transition 3 blocks, which means the top of the tower had to be 9. From the picture, you can see that this top section is obviously much taller than the other floors, which makes sense since there has to be mechanical equipment for HVAC in the top section of the elevator shafts. Since I haven't used default textures in years, I struggled to decide what material to use, but I eventually settled on smooth stone. Since the ground is 1 block below the curb, I had to fill in the construction site. For the very bottom layer, I used netherite blocks to match it as best I could. On this side, there are 4 bays with windows and doors, and on the left-hand side, there's a ramp that goes down into a parking garage. I made each window bay 2 blocks across and had 1 block for the pillar. The only inconsistency was the corner where I doubled it up. On the south side, the number of bays versus the size I had to work with didn't match up, so the number isn't right, but it looks fine. I added the ramp down to the parking garage and added a black door. Right here, you can see there's a bit of an indent. That's because there's an entrance to a stairwell. After that, I made the pillars for one of the bays and extended it over the parking garage. I then doubled up the pillars going inwards and copy and pasted the bay around the rest of the south and west sides of the base. You might notice there's these weird looking lights on the side here, so I ended up just using black glass panes because I didn't want to overcomplicate it. The building also has these glass things over top of the sidewalk, but I couldn't find a design that I liked, so I just moved on. The orange blocks you see are just place markers for where I wanted to add doors. After I added the doors, I made that weird looking gray and green wool tower. The green means that at that level, there's a ceiling or floor, and the gray just means that it's the actual space between each floor. If we look at the windows on the 2nd and 3rd floor, we can see that they are indented outwards for the middle 3/4 of the width. Obviously, this is pretty tough to make, so I had to use a little bit of world edit magic to make it work and not connect to the smooth stone on the sides. Once I had that template down pat, I just copied and stacked. Looking around the back, you'll notice that it's hard to actually see into that area right here. Google Maps Street View pictures are done once every 5 to 10 meters usually, so it skipped right over that gap. It was a bit frustrating, so I had to use my imagination and make up a number of windows and just went with it. Afterwards, I added a couple interior pillars and made a shear wall with an enclosed staircase behind it. For those of you who haven't watched my previous videos, shear walls are essentially the core of a skyscraper that house the elevator shaft, stairs, mechanical and electrical equipment. Once that was done, I went back and finished the area surrounding the parking garage and ended up pushing the garage door back by 1 block. You might have noticed that the windows above the parking garage are much bigger than the other ones, so I added this nice big window and stacked it upwards. Also, for the 4th floor, they replaced windows with balconies, so I did the same thing. Afterwards, I just extended the same design around the other sides. Down at the bottom, you can see I made a couple of adjustments, including adding green wool inside the top block of the elevator shaft. I only did that so that when I build the next floor, my fill command won't fill in the elevators too. Once that was done, I filled in the ceiling of the 1st floor. Now, you might have noticed that the footage that I just showed you looks a bit off, and you'd be right. I tried to film a time-lapse of me building, but apparently when you have 400 things open on your computer and try and record, OBS likes to skip about 99% of the frames. The intention for the 2nd and 3rd floor is that it's just different amenities for the residents, like a game room, movie theater, meeting rooms, and a bunch of other stuff. Once I finished the 2nd floor, I just stacked it right up to the 3rd. I also lost my beautiful time-lapse of the 4th floor, but all you need to know is that I made more walls. Once that was finished, voila, the base is done, and it's time to move on to the actual tower. At this point, I had figured out the issue with my software skipping frames, so I just changed to first-person recording. For the tower, I made a template for 1 floor with small balconies on the east and west sides. For the glass facade, I used glass panes with vertical iron bars every 2 blocks for some minor structural details. The upper part was tricky because I could only have half blocks in between floors, which gave me 2.5 blocks of livable space inside. Also, for the balconies, I used a subtle trick I learned on Cubed, where you alternate light and dark gray glass to make it seem like there's a division between it. For the main balconies on the north and south side, I used half slabs of smooth stone. Just ignore where I make a bunch of changes of the materials over and over. That's just me testing to see which materials work and which ones don't. On the north side, on the left side, you can see there's some other small balconies that aren't meant to stand out, so I added those too. I tried a bunch of different material combinations to get the perfect balcony railing material, and eventually settled on white stained glass panes. The final balcony design ended up being 1 slab wide, but I made it so that the railing extends half a block over the edge. And since the windows are actually glass panes, if you stand on the balcony, you actually have 2 full blocks of room laterally. I extended the shear wall upwards, added some elevator doors, fixed the staircase to adjust to 3-block vertical increments, and added the doors for the stairwell. Once that was done, it was time to make the floor plan. I found some sketchy looking floor plans online, but given that it's insanely hard to make 100% accurate floor plans while building at a 1-to-1 scale, I decided to just make my own. I made a loop around the shear wall that acts as a hallway. For the flooring, I made it out of sea lanterns and just added some carpet on top so that the light goes through. I made a blend of bachelor and 1-bedroom condos. I wish I could have had larger ones too, but I quickly realized that I didn't have much space. I added polished andesite slabs over each doorway so you can tell where they actually are. I know this shot here is a jump ahead, but you can see the outline of the floor plan that I used for the condos. Also, a huge shout out to whoever decided to furnish the tower after I was done building, because I really didn't have the patience for it. After the floor plan was all done, it was time to stack it up a couple floors just to make sure there weren't any issues. Once I saw that the floors looked good, I stacked the rest up to floor number 53. At that point, it was time to make the iconic rectangular indents. To be completely honest, I eyeballed the size of it going side to side. Vertically, everything lines up perfectly. If we remember back to a few minutes ago, each major indent is 7 floors tall, and the break in between each section is 3 floors. I added some andesite walls to give it a little more separation and punch. After a couple touch-ups, I copy and pasted the rectangular design onto the rest of the tower. The only rectangle that's different was the one at the very top on the south side, and instead of being 7 floors tall, it's only 4. At that point, the tower was done, and the only thing left was the roof. My main reference was that obscure picture I took a 1.5 years ago. I noticed the very top balcony on the south side doesn't have any weather protection, so I removed the row of slabs above it. I then made a 9-block tall gray and green pillar, so I knew the max height that I could build. I extended the tower to its final height, fixed the shear wall, and kept going from there. I tried a bunch of different size combinations for the bays on the south side, and eventually settled on 3 glass and 1 for the pillar. I added the very top section, added some HVAC equipment, and the green roof. Back down to the large windows at the top, I added a little guardrail and some carpet to mask the visible floor plan. If you look closely at this picture, you can see that the top balcony here doesn't have anything above it, and the glass behind it is just set back and continues upwards. Once again, I used the trick with the alternating glass and added some vertical iron bars. Once that was done, I finished up the lower roof section, finished the shear wall, and added the lowest green roof section. I split up the sections and added some greenery to it. I used a combination of grass, tall grass, ferns, 2-leaf variants, and some white and pink flowers just to keep the color palette simple. Great, now the build looks pretty, so let's move on to the mid-section of the roof. I extended it across, added some skylights for the stairwell, and added the glass across the side of the midsection. For the final touch, I finished the green roof and filled in the greenery. Ladies and gentlemen, just like that, the tower was complete. I hope you were able to tell that this build and video took a long time to plan and make. I would really appreciate it if you'd leave a like so the YouTube algorithm can recommend this video to more people. If this video gets 10,000 likes, I'll come back on this server and build either another skyscraper or help out with the CN tower once the upgrade to 1.17 happens. Once again, thanks for watching, and don't forget to check out Game Fruit Pulp's channel using the link in the description.